All right, looks like things are slowing down. If anyone else comes in, I will let them in as we go. But hi, everyone. I'm Ray Stevens. I'm the Information Technology Librarian at the Manchester Community Library. And I'm going to be showing you a couple of neat tricks today that you can use to watch videos from the internet on your big television at home on a screen that's a little bit bigger than your laptop, maybe. I don't know what sort of setups you all have at home right now, but I know that many folks have switched over to smart TVs. This will work with a smart TV or with one that is not. This one here is not connected to the internet. This is just a television screen in the classical sense. This trick that I'm going to show you should work with any television that was manufactured in the last 10 years or so. If it's older than that, there may be a workaround that you can use that I would be happy to talk about as well. If your TV still has tubes, I'm afraid I can't help you. But anything newer than that, there should be a workaround for what I'm going to show you. So the key to everything that we're going to be doing today is this marvelous invention right here, which does not look like much. It's called the HDMI cable. And these are used for a lot nowadays. If you have a desktop computer with a tower and a monitor at home, likely as not, this is what is connecting the tower to the monitor these days. You can also use it on most televisions because almost all of them come with an HDMI port or a place to plug this in on the back of them now. So the way that this works is that these days there is not a ton of difference between a non-smart television and a computer monitor. They are both digital displays that can take information from any sort of computing device you would like. I have a couple here with me. And then smart TVs are the exact same thing, but they have what is essentially a computer embedded in them that you can control with your remote control. So it's all digital these days. The main difference is really sort of the size and the marketing. But if you get into looking at the ports and the wires on the back of your TV versus a computer monitor, you will find that they are not that different. So in its most basic form, this is what an HDMI cable looks like up close. It's going to be a little bit blurry, but you can see that there's two flat surfaces. One of them is a little bit smaller on the bottom than on the top. And that is how you can recognize it visually. A lot of them, like this one, will also have the word HDMI printed on them in big letters on the side of the cable. These are not expensive. I think this one, because it's very, very long, was maybe $20, and I use it to reach all the way across my living room. But you can get shorter ones if you're able to place the computer closer to your television for, maybe $8–10 online. And you don't have to buy a fancy one. There are extra rugged ones that come with cloth woven around them. There are ones that come gold plated on the ends that say that'll make it work faster. You don't need to go in for any of that sort of stuff. A very cheap basic HDMI cable is going to be basically just as good as any other. And so the way that you make this work is, let's turn our TV on. So right now, this is just a freestanding screen. I brought this up from one of the other areas in the library. It's not plugged into anything except the wall. So it says it has no signal. That means that there's nothing feeding into it. It's not hooked up to a DVD player or any cable or anything like that. If we turn it around, so right now it's got no signal, but what it does have on the back is a bunch of these ports. And at home, you very likely have some stuff plugged into this already. So your DVD player may even already be using an HDMI cable. I'm not sure. It could also be on the little colored round ports. Those are a little bit of an older system. But let's get our camera over here. There we go. As you can see, there are two HDMI ports on the back of this TV. One of them is empty here, and one of them already has something plugged into it, which I'm going to unplug now because we're not going to be using that particular cable. So it has that familiar shape, the two sides, one of which is bigger than the other. And often they will have labeling next to them as well that's sort of engraved into the television, but that can be a little hard to read because it's not often colored in any way that distinguishes it from the background. When I connect this HDMI cable to one of these ports on the back and then connect the other side to a computer, it will really do most of the work for you. So now we've got our TV, the HDMI cable is plugged in. You can see enough of the screen there. And I'm going to plug it into my laptop that I have with me. And as you will see, it takes a moment to sort of recognize what's happening, and then my computer screen is right there on the television. So I'm going to log in. And you can see it's exactly as if I've set up a very big computer monitor. I can still use the trackpad on my laptop to navigate, to move the mouse around. I can drag this window. What I have set up here is an upcoming event that we have here at the library. We're doing an at-home screening of the documentary about Hedy Lamarr from a couple of years ago. So if folks would like to register for that and maybe use this trick to watch that movie at home, you'll be able to. The details will be up on our website this weekend. But now that I have this on the television, you know, I can scroll through. We have our video player here. If I hit play, I'm going to pause that real quick and use the full screen button on the screen. Get that going. And now it's just as if I'm watching the movie at home on my TV. So I'm going to take that down just so that we don't have the noises going in the background. But as you can see, this is really handy. If you are, say, watching Netflix, you can use this or any of the other streaming services. If you also just want to make a video that you have found on YouTube or Facebook really big so that you can watch it with the rest of your family, that works for that as well. So it's a neat trick to have in your pocket, and it enables TVs that are not intrinsically smart to do a lot of the stuff that smart TVs can already do, just with the one extra step. Before I go into some of the details on this, does anyone have questions? Yep. So that's what I'm going to be covering next. What I didn't say was that actually the MacBook I'm using right now also does not have an HDMI port. So I have brought a couple of different computers here. Only some computers will have an HDMI port, and I can talk about how to get around that. Here's one that does. So you can see it right there on the side. This is just a basic Windows laptop. Most Macs, with the exception of a couple that were made in 2015 or so, don't have those. And most smaller laptops don't as well. So little Chromebooks, anything in the sort of under 12 inches range is very unlikely to have an HDMI port these days. What they do have almost always is a different kind of port for which you can use an adapter. So I'm going to take this down now. So my MacBook that I was using for the demonstration here has what's called USB-C ports on the side. Depending on the age of your MacBook Air, that might be what you have, or you might have what is called mini DisplayPort. There's a real variety of the sorts of ports that might be on your computer. But what you can do is you can buy these, formally they're called adapters. You might also hear people calling them dongles, which are just little cable converters that have an HDMI port on one side that you can plug the cable from the television into. And then on the other side, they have a different kind of cable connection that will fit into your computer. So this is a mini DisplayPort. If your MacBook Air is more than a year or two old, this is probably what it has. My MacBook has what's called USB-C, which is a very tiny little bit that looks like this. It's just sort of a flat oval. And some older desktop computers in particular might have this much bigger one that tends to be color coded. They come with screws on them. They're a lot more intimidating looking. They go into the back of the computer, they come out like this, and you can buy a dongle that looks almost exactly like this for those as well. Any type of port that you have on the side of your computer, there's going to be almost certainly an HDMI adapter that will work. And as I mentioned with the cables, they're pretty cheap. So it depends on what computer stuff you want to be on the TV. So a smart TV is any TV that can connect to the internet by itself. This one is not, it's just a screen. You have to plug stuff into it in order for it to do anything. A smart TV is one of the common ways to tell is if the remote that came with it has buttons on it that say things like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu. That is a television that you can connect to your home internet by itself without plugging it into anything else, you know, power source on the wall. And it will be able to run apps on it. So that would give you things like streaming services. Often you can get to YouTube on them. Sometimes they come with built-in apps that let you, say, plug a USB stick full of your personal family photos into them, and they can do like a slideshow for you. But it won't, for instance, just by being a smart TV, allow you to look at your files. So if you wanted to do something a little offbeat, like edit a Word document really big, it doesn't have access to your computer. No, they generally can't do email. Although if you wanted your email on the big screen, you could plug a laptop into it through the HDMI cable. And at that point, like I said, it's just a big computer monitor. So what you would do for that, this is actually a useful thing for me to show all of you. Most of the time when you plug the HDMI cable into a TV, it will, if it doesn't have any other inputs going, like the one I've used here, it will sense that you've just plugged in an HDMI cable and switch to that automatically. But I imagine most of you are at least a little bit familiar with the input menu on a TV. So if you have a television that is plugged into a cable box and a DVD player, you can switch back and forth between those using the input button on your remote. This is very similar. So smart TVs will have in their input menu a lot more options than non-smart TVs. And they will have usually, there might be one called VGA. There's going to be one for cable. They will usually have HDMI 1 and HDMI 2 because most televisions have more than one HDMI port so that you can plug in, say, a laptop and a DVD player. And then the smart TV will usually also have an input that is called AirPlay. So you switch to that, and then you set up the AirPlay on your iPad. It's a little bit beyond the scope of today's talk. I don't have an iPad handy to show you, but if you tell me, I'd be happy to work on it with you. You don't, although it will, you just have to be mindful of the laptop's battery. So it doesn't need to be plugged into the wall for this connection to work. But streaming video is a sort of power intensive activity. So the battery will run down a little bit faster than you're probably used to. If I'm gonna be watching like a full 2.5-hour movie, I'll plug the laptop in. If it's for anything shorter than that, it's usually fine to just let it sit next to the TV. Yeah, so actually that's a good question. So the connection is always going to go from your computer directly to the television itself, not to any devices that might be plugged into the television unless you have like a really specialized setup, in which case, welcome. I'm not sure why you came to this one because you are beyond what I'm explaining right now. However, if you're using a desktop computer, it's important to know that you are not plugging the HDMI cable in from the TV to the computer's monitor. You are going from the tower itself, you know, the big box, to the TV. I know that a lot of people think of the monitor piece as the computer itself, but you would really just be plugging a TV into a TV at that point. Thank you all for coming.